Generally, when I put a poll out on Twitter, on average, maybe 1,000, 1,200 votes.
I know I'm shamelessly pumping the poll here.
Thank you, Sam. 3,342 votes came in. Would you, as a fan base, support a full rebuild? I've put this question out at least 5 times in the past. Not once. It's usually, I would say, on average, 65-35 against. No, I don't want to go through that. 77% say they would support a full rebuild. Now, should the Kings win tonight, I'm just going to have a little fun. Should the Kings win tonight, shortly after the game, I'm going to put the same exact question out, just to prove a point. I would be shocked if it was even above 50%. I think it would flip the other way. It's a very fickle response. And by the way, I don't know that that's the right way to go, but here's the, in my opinion, here's the state of the franchise. You don't have a ton of assets. You don't have guys that you're just going to get a boatload. Really, Sabonis is your number one asset. You'll get a decent return for him. You will get positive results for Monk, for DeRozan, for Keegan Murray, maybe Devin Carter. I don't know. Zach LaVine's a negative asset. But the Kings, there's 2 things that I often will go back and forth with people online with. Is number one, the response, dude, I'm tired of rebuilding. I don't want to go through that again. This team has never rebuilt. They've never gone through a full rebuild. They've sucked, but
I guess you have to define what that means to people.
Totally makes sense. Being bad doesn't mean you're in a rebuild. It means you're bad and you're trying to get better. A full rebuild. Look at the biggest example is what Sam Hinkie did with Philadelphia when
they're doing great
when they bought him. Well, it's so funny. Somebody said that to me yesterday. They said, "Well, look at what Hinkie did. Look at what Hinkie did with Philadelphia. Where'd that get him?" I would say this: got him in the playoffs and got him. They've had a much better last 10 years than we have. No,
better. Yeah, I guess
they're in the playoffs every year. Have
they been to the second round?
Have they? I thought they had. Well, didn't they lose to Kawhi? Wasn't that the second or third round? I think that was
the second round. Yeah,
they've been relevant. They've been above 500. They have a superstar in Embiid. Obviously, that's not going well right now. And really, ifs and buts and candy and nuts. Sure. It's one of the big reasons why a rebuild is also a gamble. Is they actually paid to trade up to not draft Jason Tatum and draft current Sacramento King Markelle Fultz. I wonder how things work out differently if Jason Tatum's playing with Joel Embiid. Oklahoma City is a great example. I think Cleveland to a point is a great example. Utah is in process right now, but that is a full rebuild with both Gobert and Donovan Mitchell being traded for a combo of 8 draft picks. And then building around guys like Lauri Markkanen and Walker Kessler. A full rebuild for the Sacramento Kings would entail basically between now and the start of next season, every piece of talent you have, for the most part, is traded away. Maybe you've got Keegan Murray and Devin Carter, that you're 2 young guys left. But if you get a huge return for Sabonis, and then you try to make it work around the edges, and you go into next season with whatever you've drafted, whatever you've signed, and you're going to be terrible next year, and you're going to continue to try to acquire picks, acquire lottery picks. By the way, Detroit, another example. Houston, also kind of an example, a little less, of teams that go that route.
Would trading DeMarcus have been a rebuild? I mean, that was clearly their best player.
It would have been a rebuild, I think, had they continued on that wavelength. I think also,
I just don't know how much else they had.
They didn't. And by the way, they had that begat them the opportunity for Luka Doncic. They draft Luka Doncic, it's a whole different world now.
Yeah.
That got him
De'Aaron.
That got them De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah, if the Kings drafted Luka, then it'd be all of us saying, why is he so fat? Why is he so slow? Why doesn't he play defense?
Did you see the one fan yell at him over the weekend? Shut up, fat boy. Now,
Oh yeah, he's a big boy.
A very valid response as well. Again, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. I think it's a great discussion. A very valid response to is, okay, in order to rebuild successfully, you got to make smart decisions. Is this the front office you want doing that? Mm-hmm. Is this front office that drafted Davion Mitchell, this front office that drafted so far at least Devin Carter, this front office that just did this Fox trade for a top 4 movable contract? And you know I'm a Monty. I like Monty. I do respect these guys. I'm just not entirely convinced that all of this is Monty and the front office guys. Either way. And I am absolutely convinced that ownership they will never go near this. I think Vivek is you play to win the game guy.
Right.
But this is an ongoing disease this team has had, Jason. You'll remember the end of the Maloof era. They were desperately trying to hold on to the playoffs with their mid-level exception signings from Mikey Moore on down. They were trying to do anything they could to stay relevant. And then when Vivek and company took over, there was a mandate to get in the playoffs by the time Golden One Center opened, which they didn't. And they've been obsessed with getting back ever since.
Right.
My question to everybody is this. Is this team not in just about the worst possible position you can be in? And for those of you saying, well, we're 500, I'm saying, okay, but hold on a second, guys. Be realistic. Is this a team that likely gets to the first round of the playoffs? I think it's maybe 60-40 against right now. Any reasonable chance other than any given Sunday for them to make the second round of the playoffs?
Yeah, I don't feel like they have a very high ceiling. And I think the thing about trading, here's what I felt about now that we've had a little bit of space between the De'Aaron trade. Like if they didn't make the trade and they still had De'Aaron Fox, just to me internally, it still feels like you could maybe talk yourself into going, well, you still have Fox, you have Sabonis, you have Keegan. Like there's still some young pieces. Well, you have DeRozan, you have Levine. Yeah. What's their great young piece?
They don't have one.
Yeah. So that to me is where I do think I like their bench better. So I feel like maybe they've raised their floor, maybe, but I don't think.
I don't disagree with that.
I don't think their ceiling's very high.
I think their absolute top ceiling, is second round of the playoffs.
Yeah, and that's with everything lining up perfectly. You got the right matchup. You got through somebody, right. and then you just
which means you're not getting your pick this year. That's in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. Okay. DeRozan ain't getting any younger. Levine ain't going to change. Sabonis ain't getting any younger.
I mean, obviously, you would have done something right in that stretch, but it just, what does that look like with this group? What's the best version of this group?
Right, and who are you bringing in that's going to make the difference? Now, who knows? Jokic was in the second round. I'm not. Of course, we're going to acknowledge the unknown, but we're talking about likely scenarios.
Yeah,
this, in my opinion, and I would invite anyone to push back. This team is wrecked. They're wrecked. Fox was their most tradable asset. They got a top 4 immovable contract back who so far too early, but is not working out. Even if he does work out, even if we get the Bulls Levine, the ceiling is still set. You have no chance with this group. You have zero chance with this group at a championship. I believe you had zero chance at a Western Conference Finals. You now have an older team with a hugely immovable contract, one massively tradable asset in Domantas Sabonis, and it's rinse and repeat. What changes can be made for next year to make it better?
Right. And I still think, and whether they would say it or not, I think there's a little bit of a byproduct of Fox basically saying that. Like, look, I don't think we can do it here. Yeah. For the short term, I'm going to a team that's worse.
Right, because I see the future.
Yeah.
And so I trust them more to build.
He may go backwards before he goes forward. And then the parts that are left here, one, are a little bit like, hey, man, we were all in this together. Two, wait, maybe are we not that good? Maybe he thought that, and the results aren't showing that they're playing that well.
And nobody wants to, and I don't blame anybody for not wanting to face that fact. And, they're going to have a couple of wins this year. They shouldn't. there's going to be another 3, 4, 5 game winning streak. I would all but guarantee it. There's going to be some ups and downs, but at the end of the year, we're going to be sitting with no draft pick, no first round pick at least. And the only thing is to move on the fringes, unless you're going to make a big swing with Sabonis. Maybe you move, you'll almost. I cannot imagine a world where DeMar DeRozan is on this team next year. You're gonna move him for something. Now you got him for nothing, basically. I mean, you got him for Harrison Barnes effectively, so that's fine. But where's your impact move? Where's the move that's going to all of a sudden, the problem is that you have a mandate. My guess is that you have a mandate from above to get this team as playoffy as possible, as quickly as possible. And Monty McNair and Wes Wilcox have that mandate on their shoulders, which has probably forced them into some moves they shouldn't have done. I'd love to have that conversation someday. I really would. And now that's it. You should have waited on Fox. He wasn't going anywhere. He himself thought it was going to be over the summer. I understand his value goes down to other teams as the clock ticks, but dude, it's too big of a move. And not getting that 2031 pick swap, not getting Stephon Castle, not getting any picks out of the deal to speak of.
Yeah. And in hindsight, we couldn't have known about Wembanyama, but maybe they're going, hey, you know what? We want a big in return as well. Throw in who knows? And maybe the whole trade is completely different.
And that's it now. You're stuck with this team with no ceiling. And at the end, I want to acknowledge the pain now, because I just don't want to be sitting here 2-3 years from now saying the same thing. And that's what the future looks like. Mm-hmm. It's not just that this season looks bad. It's the future of this team looks bad. And at some point, you have to hope ownership realizes that and says, guys, we can't shortcut this thing. Vivek Ranadive from a basketball perspective has been an unmitigated failure since he took over this club. The second worst winning percentage of any ownership this team has ever had in 40 plus years. And it's been bad. An absolute failure. Off the court, all the other stuff, hey, awesome. No problems. And at some point, I get it, you can't fire the owner, but let's have the conversation of the fact that if ownership was fireable, he would have been fired 5 years ago. Now, that ain't going to happen, but at some point you got to go, okay, you're not allowed to weigh in on basketball matters anymore. You're not. You got to do what they did last time. They hired an outside consultant to do a search. It was between Sachin Gupta and Monty McNair, and you figure that out again, and the only thing you're allowed to weigh on is finances, which you should. It's his right. He's signing the checks. 100% should sign off on taking on this big contract or that big contract. But when it comes to I don't want to trade that guy, that your opinion is invalid. It doesn't count. If Vivek was in this room right now, I would say directly to him, God bless you. When you first got on the floor and we all saw it and the fireworks going off around you, you said, this is your team and it's here to stay. And without you, we don't have a team. Therefore, you should never buy another drink in this town. But dude, ain't working.
Yep.
We'll take a break. When we come back, Kings Rewind.